God bless you once again this morning. Friends, family, brothers in Christ that are watching us this connected live today. We're so blessed once again and very glad to be in the house of God and sharing the message of God today for every single one of you from God's heart to you. The Bible says in the book of Psalms 131, this is a very renowned psalm. The Word of God states in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I will lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made the heavens and the earth. He will not let your feet stumble, or sleep he who guards you. Surely he will not slumber or sleep, the one who guards Israel. The Lord is your guard, he is your shadow on the right hand, as the sun will not tire you by day, and the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. He will keep your soul. The Lord will guard your entrance and your exit from here and forever. What a beautiful psalm and scripture. Let's elevate a prayer and put our life in God's hands. Father God, we give thanks to you this hour. Once again, my God, as you allow us to be here in your house of worship, my God, in order to glorify and exalt your blessed and holy name. My God, we place everything in your hands. We invite the presence of the Holy Spirit upon our lives, upon the church, upon all of those who are here to transmit your message that you have for your people, my God. Bless your pastor who is going to share your word of exhortation, the word of blessing, the word, my God, that will reach the heart of man and then heal those that are sick, the person who is brokenhearted, the person who is suffering, who feel that they have no way out, but they may know that you have the solution for them. We bless your name, God, and give thanks to you in every moment. Blessed be the Lord our God. Church of God, let us sing to God and our sister Lillian with us.
Mi Dios está aquí. Oh sí, mi Dios está aquí. Obrando en mí, siento su presencia como un viento suave, porque mi Dios está aquí. Sí, mi Dios está aquí. Oh, sí, mi Dios está aquí. Obrando en mí, siento su presencia como un viento suave, porque mi Dios está aquí. Levanta tus manos y dile que te toque y que Él te ministre, porque mi Dios está aquí. Yo puedo sentir su presencia como un viento suave, porque mi Dios está aquí. Oh, levanta tus manos y dile que te toque y que Él te ministre, porque mi Dios está aquí. Yo puedo sentir su presencia como un viento suave, porque mi Dios está aquí. No hay nadie como tú, no hay nadie como tú, precioso y glorioso, tan bello y tan hermoso. No hay nadie como tú, no hay nadie como tú, precioso y glorioso, tan bello y tan hermoso. Jesús, Jesús, precioso Jesús. Oh, oh, amado mío, mi corazón te canta a ti por todo lo que has hecho en mí, Señor Jesús. Mi vida es tuya, mi vida es tuya, Señor. Te doy todo lo que soy para que te glorifiques, Dios. Y no hay nadie como tú, no hay nadie como tú, precioso y glorioso, tan bello y tan hermoso. Jesús, Jesús, precioso Jesús. Oh, oh, amado mío, mi corazón te canta a ti por todo lo que has hecho en mí, Señor Jesús. Mi vida es tuya, mi vida es tuya, Señor. Te doy todo lo que soy para que te glorifiques, Dios. Y no hay nadie como tú, no hay nadie como tú. Tú eres precioso y glorioso, tan bello y tan hermoso. Lord, there is none like you. Lord, there is none like you. You're precious and you're glorious, so beautiful and marvelous. Lord, there is none like you. Lord, there is none like you. You're precious and you're glorious, so beautiful and marvelous. No hay nadie como tú, no hay nadie como tú, precioso y glorioso, tan bello y tan hermoso. Lord, there is none like you. Lord, there is none like you. You're precious and you're glorious, so beautiful and marvelous.
Praise the living God. God is incomparable. There is no one like our God. Good morning today, this beautiful Sunday. We're so grateful to God for God giving us the opportunity, um, for God for allowing us to be here in His house to be able to share with you in your homes, and even in the place where you are in your homes as you're listening to God's word being shared. It is a blessing. Um, we know that, and we always in expectation that the God always has a word to share with us, and we believe that God, in one way or the other, that God always brings to us what it is that we need, and not what it is that we want or desire, but God brings to us what it is that we need. Greetings, big hugs to all of you. Um, and this morning, as I came here this morning, there was already a group of family. There were some people were here coming in and coming out, praying to God, worshiping God, and it seems again like you know it's starting to look like that congregating is happening, the unity that is happening. God is doing some amazing things. Today we're going to speak about, you know what, that God is is searching for you. Let us go to Second Chronicles 15:8. In the name of the Father and the Holy Spirit. So I'm gonna give you an opportunity for you to get your Bibles out. So that you can, get your cup of coffee or whatever, some orange juice, whatever you want to do. Sit down with your Bible with you, and get ready as you can rest upon and receive that beautiful Word of God. If for some reason you're not able to watch the live feed this moment, you can do it later on. Okay, the Word of God, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Second Chronicles, uh, chapter 15, verse 8. Second Chronicles 15:8. When Asa heard these words in the prophecy of Azariah, son of Oded, the prophet, he took courage. He removed the detestable idols from the whole land of Judah and Benjamin, and from the towns he had captured in the hills of Ephraim. And I want you to highlight this important, you know, phrase. He repaired the altar of the Lord that was in front of the portico of the Lord's temple. And I'm going to repeat that portion. He repaired the altar of the Lord that was in front of the portico of the Lord's temple. You may be seated, beloved brothers and sisters, this beautiful morning. In these past days, as I was studying the Word of God and I was praying to God, and every single time that we come to preach God's Word, at times it's not what we study, but God, He has a different message through what we are studying. I don't know the preachers and those who study the scriptures has that happened to. So God, moved me to preach this word today. When we talk about the word repair, or He repaired, He's talking about restoration or restoring something and composing something, and amending or fixing something. We are correcting something or re-establishing something. I'm gonna say this again. When we're speaking about the phrase here, He repaired, something was destroyed, something that needed to be repaired again, restored again. Something needed to be composed, or needed to be fixed, or needed to be corrected, or needed to be re-established. And that is the word. I want you to highlight the word repaired. He repaired. And that is the focal point of emphasis in this message, in God's word. He repaired the altar of the Lord. And do not be glad, do not be content or happy in the place that you are in your relationship with God. And I believe that it is impossible for us to find ourselves to be content in the relationship that we have with God. And I believe that you and I, we need to improve our spiritual condition of our lives. Do not allow the enemy to keep you under the influence of the weight of situations that you have in your lives. Do not be content with the place that you are currently in your relationship with God. I believe there has to be more. I believe that God has something better for us, for our lives. We cannot permit the enemy to keep us under the weight of the situations that we are currently, experiencing. God wants and God desires for you to be filled with His presence, because there is a place reserved for you where God wants you to sit beside Him. And I'm going to repeat this once again, and forgive me that I like to repeat certain portions of the message, but it is just to bring to light the emphasis, because at times we may miss and hear what God wants to say to us. That you may go up to His mountain of His presence, and there is a place reserved for you where God wants you to sit down alongside. And I like to watch news and listen to the news, but let me tell you something. The news that, provides me good guidance. Hey, Pastor, we want to do a group prayer group intercession, and I'm fascinated by these things because that is God's desire, and the desire of God is for that if we come together, we're going to receive what we want from God. And when a group of brothers or sisters unite, this everything was beautiful, adorned of people that were seeking God's presence here in prayer, and that is what gets God excited and God's happy and content and glad with us. And Christians, human beings, we need to go up to His mountain. We need to go up. God wants to have a relationship with every single one of us. And Jeremiah said, Jeremiah 29:13, and you will seek me and you will find me because you will find me, seek me with all your heart. Look at how important that is. You will search for me and you will find me because you will search for me with all of your heart. We have to search for God with all of our heart. And it is very sad when the Lord looked at His disciples one moment and He saw congregated people that were congregated together, that were following Him. Very well, the prophet said that you will search for me and worship me from lips, but your hearts are far from me. And that was something very painful, very striking. That a lot of people, were searching for God in that way. But in another way, but you search for me not because you have seen the signs, but you are searching me because of the bread. You eat from the bread and you have been satisfied. I have a phrase that I really love. We need to stop seeing the hand of God and need to start seeing His face. We need to stop looking out for what is in God's hand for us and stop searching for His face. And that is a very interesting point because there are many people that are looking for God, is God's hand, looking for that provision, what God is to provide to us, but we're not searching for that relationship with God. And it is about time that we need for our heart to be righteous and upright before God. There are things that God wants to demonstrate to us there. And the only way that we can see those things is for us to go up to the mountain of His presence. And everything is left up to you. You are the one who decides today where you are going to walk. And everything is up to you. And I want to tell you that everything depends on us. The prodigal son, he searched, he was searching for him again because of need. He didn't even remember his father. He remembered that in the house of his father there was bread. He had a need in his life, but he did not recognize or acknowledge his spiritual need. He went back home looking for bread. And God wants to have a relationship with us. He wants to have a spiritual relationship with God. The Word of God says that you will search first for the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and everything else will be added on. And when you search for God first, His kingdom of God first, God is going to take care of the rest. We need to put our eyes on God. Psalm says, he asks this question: who will go up the hill of God? And who will be in His holy place? When you begin to read Psalms, the same question is responded to in this psalm. That God is searching for you to worship Him. God is looking for you to worship Him. And I want us to go to a dimension of worship, a higher dimension of worship. I believe that our worship given to God has been frivolous, has been cold, has been barren, and we have not been acknowledging God. We're worshiping man, and we got to recognize who we're worshiping. We are worshiping God. He's just not anybody, any stranger. No, it's God. The Lord says to the Samaritan woman, "My Father is searching for worshipers who worship Him in spirit and truthfully. It is time for us to set aside the superficial deceit of the spiritual life. It is about time for us to turn our lives back to God. What is it that God has to do for us to wake up? If this situation that we're going through, this pandemic, doesn't wake us up, what is? What does God have to allow to come over the face of the earth that what will cause us to reflect that God is searching for a personal relationship with every single one of us? You are God's creation. I am God's creation. And God's purpose, that the purpose that God has created us, is for us to worship Him and only God. And today, there are many. And this is a very sad to say. Many people are those that come to church. But even with all the multitude, all the people that do come to congregate, God is still searching for worshipers to worship God in truth, in spirit. And not everybody who says Lord, Lord are true worshipers. God is looking for, and He always finds people who are faithful with a heart that is willing to worship Him. God is searching for people who have hearts that are wide open for God. That it doesn't matter what is happening around them. That it doesn't matter what's happening in their lives. That they continue to worship God. That it doesn't matter that they are criticized, but they have their hearts submitted to God. These are the worshipers. The person who are apathetic and frivolous, these are people who have gotten up, let's say. They have gotten up instead. People who were that way, they were stuck. They were apathetic. They were not worshiping God. But now God has awakened them. God is waking them up. These are people that are burning with the fire of God and God's people. But God is searching amongst the people, those who worship Him in spirit and truth. And God is earnestly waiting for people who worship Him in spirit and truth. Enough is about religious services and religion and let us come with purpose. There has to be a new beginning in our lives. That when we come back to the doors of the church, that we come here with a new dimension, that the young people will come here with a desire to worship God with a new dimension. And you men and women don't come here to have business transactions or businesses or doing any other thing. But you may come here to worship God. That you may have a different mentality. That you may come with a different spirit and with a flesh that is submitted to God, so that we are able to worship God. We're going to have that desire that we can come together to worship God. That we are like the woman that was bleeding with the illness. And this woman, she opened herself up, so that she can pass, through the multitude of people in order to find the Lord Jesus. This woman, made herself, vulnerable in order for her to touch Jesus. And that effort, or touching Jesus, she was healed. Do you want to be healed? Then go worship God. Open, yourself. Make yourself vulnerable to God. Open yourself up to Him, and toss away all the garbage of your life. Put the phone to the side. The game, anything you're doing, TV, put that to the side, because a lot of the time these things are an impediment for you to come to God and worship Him freely. And they're distractions. You are worshiping God, but you got your cell phone next to you. You are worshiping God, but your TV is on. Turn all that stuff, all that garbage off, and let God work in your life. You're going to see how God is going to operate. This woman who was with this illness of bleeding for 12 years, she was tired. She had enough of the situation she was going through. Are you hearing the teacher? He is close to your life, to your home. Are you listening to the teacher speaking to your life? She heard that the teacher was running. He was near. And she made herself available to God, vulnerable, and opened herself up to God. And she was healed. 2 Chronicles 15, verse 8. There's a beautiful portion in Scripture that we're able to learn of what was hiding. there's a lesson in Asa in restoring the altar of restoration. In verse 8 in chapter 15 in 2nd Chronicles, he restored the altar of the Lord. That's the first thing that he did. At times, we start in the wrong way. In order for me to be able to find God in my life, I need to repair the altar, the place where God dwells. We are the temple of the Holy Spirit. Our temple needs to be cleansed, needs to be rid, and dusted off of all the things that are not pleasing to God. And God cannot come to reside in us in His presence if we're filled with trash, with garbage. The first thing that Asa did, he went to fix the altar of the Lord. And I want you to hear this. During these times, we have lifted up or erected many altars. They have been dedicated to idols that we have in our hearts. There's so many different altars in our lives that we worship any other thing or anyone but God. I don't want you to feel bad. Remember, today is Sunday, right? Okay? But I want you to learn something. Sadly so, I gotta say it how it is. God is in second place in your life. Sadly, I gotta say this. Many people have God in second place, but there are people who have God in last place. And perhaps you were expecting a message of strength or encouragement, but let me tell you something. This is to encourage you that in order for me to receive the presence of God, I had to repair my altar. If my altar is not repaired, is not restored, then God cannot reside in the altar. There has to be a new sacrifice, in this altar, that God can consume the sacrifice. We need altars that are clean, that can worship God with a pure heart. To remove the idols that we have planted, that we have cemented into our hearts for years, for decades. Idols that we have planted in our hearts. Idols that we are carrying with us daily, etc., etc. And one of the things is that when Jacob was being pursued and they were gonna come to end his family and end his life, leave all of the idols, get rid of all the idols, all the garbage, so that we may obtain the victory. And that is what God is asking us for us to get rid of all those things that are holding back the presence of God from our lives. Everything that is creating an obstacle for God's presence in our lives. We feel the breeze of God, but that's all we're feeling. I want the entire presence of God in my life. Do you want it for your life? So let us begin to clean out our altars. Let us start so that God can be honored. God cannot be honored. Friend, family who was hearing me, do not feel bad with me. God cannot be honored if you and I have altars in our heart, idols, in our hearts. And one of the things that the Lord, asks you, son, give me your heart because life flows from it. God is so interested in our hearts. Therefore, what is in our hearts? What do you have in your hearts? Wrath, anger? You have a grudge against someone? You have a bad attitude? Your demeanor is not where it should be? And Elijah knew something very important. He was a man of God. And James, he describes him as a man, of passion, and God knew that Elijah was a man that was faithful to him. When the moment comes of knowing who God is, he stands up and says, you are double-minded with a divided heart. Let us see who God is. If Baal is your God, then follow you. But if you serve my Lord, you're going to follow the Lord. What a amazing decision they had to make. We got to go up the mountain. Because in the mountain is the presence of God. And we're going to go up the mountain. In the mountain, we're going to know who God is. And the first thing that he did, that he took the sacrifice, etc. In chapter 18, First Kings, First Kings 18:30. And the first thing that he did to receive the fire of God and the presence of God was to fix the altar that was ruined. I want you to hear this. Elijah would have been unable to destroy the enemy, the Baals. The thing is this, that we are backwards. We are rebuking the devil, we are praying, we are prophesying, saying this and that, but we have a broken altar. Elijah, in order to overcome the enemies, these demons, these Baals, he first of all had to correct what was broken. And I said to you at the beginning that the word repaired means restoration, means to compose. And I said to fix or correct or reestablish. And that is why I started with the word repaired. You and I need to repair. We need to repair. This is not about singing or doing something inside the church. This is knowing that your heart is upright before God. And that is the problem that we have, many churches. And many churches get full, right? And many people say, Lord, Lord, I don't know you, says the Lord. God doesn't know you. There are many people who attend church that the Lord does not know. And the hour will come to you apart from me, you evildoers. The hour will come, the moment will come, when God is going to have to choose between this, that what is happening right now is the opportunity in the moment for us to have to fix our broken altars. The altars that are filthy, filled with anger, filled with malice and many demonic pressure, and garbage and influence. And you can see people that instead of searching for God, they are worshiping death itself, witchcraft practicing, looking for witchcraft as the way for resolution. And we're never going to fix this when the people of God begin to search for God for real, truthfully worship God, people. Come on. When God's people begin to kneel down, get on their knees with all their heart, when the young youth of God give in to God, these things are going to get better in their life. When the ministers are filled with God and they put to the side philosophies and theological views, and instead they allow the Spirit of God back into their lives. We need God's Holy Spirit. I'm not talking about emotion. I'm talking about restoration, the Holy Spirit that can restore us. In the situation that we are currently in, nowadays, the church, we had to depend on judicial law or executive, decision for us to reopen. And if Christians are one to violate, and be in disobedience to the authorities of this earth, the Bible says that we need to submit. Now, if you want to be disobedient, that is your problem. That is your subject matter. That is your choice. You can call me a coward, pastor, because you're not opening the church. You can call me, you can name call me, you can do whatever you want. What I care about, that we had to serve God. We had to serve a God that is obedient, a God who is orderly, and a God who has discipline. We had to be disciplined. And many people who are undisciplined, they're doing whatever they want. They're saying this and that and talking a lot, and they have disorderly and destroyed altars. People are shouting on glory to God, but they have altars that are rotten. And they come to church and gather together, worshiping God with altars that are dirty and filthy. We need to start to worship God in spirit and truth. This is the time of worshiping God. I'm not talking about the latter days, the end times. I'm talking about times of restoration. I am talking about that the church needs to be restored. I'm talking about that the leaders need to be restored. I'm talking about the ministers need to be restored before God. We need to get rid of the demon of anger, of contention, of divisiveness, of jealousy, away from the church. We cannot even talk to people, some people, because they are mad. And they say they're God's people, they speak in tongues, and they're always mad. We can't even talk to them. We are missing we are needing to restore worship. And Asa, he understood in 2 Chronicles 15:8 that we need to restore worship. God wants us to come to Him and be, humble before Him. That we need to remove the demon of arrogance, for us to be submissive, that we love one another, that we care for one another. I want you to hear this. When the altar of worship is restored, I want you to write this down in your life. Then worship is going to restore you. I want you to, there's nothing that you take from this message today. I want you to grasp this and take this with you to your heart. When the altar of your heart is restored in your life, then worship restores you. It is so that things happen. And Paul and Silas, they were in affliction. And they were in the innermost cell in the prison. But they agreed. And I want you to hear this. They agreed. They came into agreement in worshiping God. And we have groups of people who are in disagreement, people who are worshiping in a worship group, and their disagreement, what should we sing, what we shouldn't sing. And people want to, bring heaven to earth, but we cannot bring heaven to earth because we got a lot of garbage in our hearts. I want you to listen to this. And when Paul and Silas, they agreed, we're going to sing. We're going to worship God in the middle of the situations, in the middle of what we are going through, in the middle of the crying and tears and the affliction. We're going to worship God now. Wow. We don't have an audience to sing. We don't have nobody. But we have some prisoners who are needy and hearing the word of God through these songs. But you and I, we got to fix God's altar in our lives. Let us communicate, you and I. Let us come into alignment. Let us come into agreement that our relationship is good with God, that we are in peace with God. We are in peace with each other. And these two men, Paul and Silas, opened their mouths. And it was a shaking happening. The place shook, and the cellar doors began to open. The prisoners started to come out. And one said, "Look, what do I do? Calm down. Take it easy. The Lord has visited this place. What do I do? Today you and your household will be saved." Worship changes. Worship restores your lives. It is that when you enter and your altar is clean, you're able to cry out to God, and God has an ear waiting for you. When you worship God in spirit and truth, then God inclines His ear to you, and God's ear is, "My child, what do you need? I feel that you are worshiping me with all your heart. I feel that your worship is moving me in heaven. Hallelujah. And I am inclining myself to you to hear you. What do you need?" Oh, worship God, people. Come on. Oh, praise the living God. Oh, glory to God. And the people of God is damaged from head to toe. People of God doing whatever they want to do, whatever pleases them. And doing things as they see fit. And they're not serving the God for real, truthfully. I want to tell you something. The people of God who is here, we're not respecting our God. Our God should be respected. He should be revered. The church is not revering God. They're not respecting God. The leaders are not respecting God. We are preaching a gospel that is dry, that is empty, that is void. We want to be presumptuous. We want to pretend as if we are what we're not. And you're not serving man, you are serving Christ. You are listening to sermons but instead listen to Christ speaking to your heart. Empty yourself out so that Christ can fill you up again. Without being mistaken, we should internally we should try to consider instead to try to make every effort in trying to change us internally than to change ourselves externally. And we look so good outside, but we got to be careful, because I'm going to get you a verse in scripture that the Lord told those who followed him. And that is why we got to say goodbye to vanity and vanity. And we should center ourselves in what is the exaltation of Jesus Christ. We are self-exalted and we don't exalt Christ. We need to exalt Christ above ourselves, above everything. Christ is before us. He's first in our lives. The glory is God's, not ours. We have to give God the glory. And the church of God has filled himself with vanity, with vanity-glory. And that is why we as a people cannot feel the presence of God, because the Holy Spirit cannot move in our church, because there is iniquity. And when there's iniquity in God's people, the presence of God we're not going to feel when there's iniquity. We need to be reminded of this. This expression, and Jesus said it, and I'm going to, is that you are tombs. Are tombs. And I'm going to say, just like Jesus Christ says, you are tombs. Tombs of people. Matthew 23:25. Matthew 23:25. 27. Woe to you, scribes. He called them hypocrites. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You build tombs for the prophets, and on the outside, you seem to be beautiful. On the outside, you are like whitewashed tombs, which look, this verse 27, on the outside, but on the inside are full of dead men's bones, and everything unclean. Wow. And a lot of people don't like me because I am an adversary to many, because I speak the word of God the way it is. I say it the way it is. What worth it is for me to have a church that is filled with thousands of people or a lot of people, and for me to not speak the word of God the way it is. I need people to worship God together in spirit and truth. This is not about money or making money. It's not about having more people come to church so we can make. No. We got to look for God for real. The church needs a change. The church needs a change. That when the people of God worship God in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, worship produces restoration and healing. I want you to listen, church. In the Old Testament produced healing. In the New Testament, worship produced healing. Because worship repairs the damage done by sin. When I worship God, worship restores me and repairs and renews, because true worship restores. Worship restores. Oh, praise God. So that this happens, we need to repair the altar of worship in our lives. And then when people come together, we're going to be people filled with fire. People who are going to worship in spirit and truth. And I hope that when all the leaders come back to church, the one who works with treasuries, secretaries, ministers, come with a change in their life. They will come humble. We will come humbly or humble to the church of God, and we are more sensible to the Spirit of God. I want to tell all of you who are listening right now, we are in a time of change. And I got to say this again. We are in a time of change. I got to say that again. We are in a time of change. Our way of life has changed. Our way of life is different now. Our way of life, commercially speaking, has changed. The way we go to stores nowadays is different. Our relationships have changed. Everything has changed. We are in a different time of change. We are in a different change. Whether you like it or not, want it to be or not, we are in a different change. But the moment has come to stop living in only appearances. The moment has come for us to stop living in appearances and start to worship God and please God. The moment has come for us to be, dressed in the presence of the Spirit of God and stop living in just appearances and living in the moment or starting to cry out to God. And the moment has come for us to stop living in appearances and come to please God in His house. We need to stop having the spirit of Judas. As God is healing the hypocrites, the ones who kiss you on the cheek like Judas kissed Jesus. God has changed everything. We're the ones that are uncomfortable. We're the ones that don't feel comfortable because we position ourselves on the cushion of our seats. We get too comfortable and we don't want to move. And when we get, we don't like to be uncomfortable. And we get uncomfortable because things are changed. And now, my feet hurt now. And I cannot move around. I don't like the change. And everything hurts us because everything is new. Everything is different. And the house of God is different. Now it hurts us. I cannot greet that brother. I cannot greet that sister. Hypocrisy is over with. Pastor, do you think that I was greeting you hypocritically? No. Well, that's your problem. You think that. We're people that we're gonna have to consider each other. We're gonna have to respect each other. We're gonna feel the other sister or brother's burden. Hey Lord, the people that you never knew, now you're going to get closer to help them. Everything has changed. Everything has changed. Our lives have changed. This is the moment, the time to fix the temple of our body. This is the moment for us to center ourselves inside the temple of our heart. The moment has come to center ourselves in the heart, and not only inside of us how we look or appear, but in an interior that is fixed or repaired, and that will reflect outwardly. And that is why we see people with bad attitude because they have a rotten heart. We see people with repugnant type of behavior because their heart is rotten too. And people who are miserable, doesn't matter what is said to you. A lot of people are miserable because their heart is not well. The book of Proverbs says, the heart, the glad heart beautifies the face. A glad heart beautifies your face, your semblance. There's so many people who have faces that they're gloomy, they're saddened. A lot of people who are upset, angry, you can see it in their face. When the heart is glad completely, you can notice it in their face, their facial expression. You can see it. And that's why we're called to restore and not to adorn. But it is not worth it to be adorned and to look like we are adorning ourselves, but we're not truly. And for us to perfume ourselves with costly and expensive perfume, but outwardly, but inside of us, we're rotten. I gotta say this. This is very important to say. Just in case we missed out on it, and that's why the prophet talks about restoring and not adorning. The Bible doesn't speak about adorning the altar because it is not worth that you try to dress with the style, right? And you're trying to dress with expensive, exquisite clothing, and then you dress, with costly, expensive perfume, but inside of you, you are empty and destroyed. When we talk about restoration, we talk about rebuilding because there's ruin in your life and there's abandonment. We're talking about restoration. We're talking about two things. There is ruin. Secondly, there's an abandonment. The cause of the ruin. Why is there ruin? Spiritually, materially, is idolatry. The cause of ruin during this time is idolatry. That is the worst thing that has caused man to go against themselves, against their own flesh, against their own family, against their blessing. Psalms 106, 36, 37. What does ruin mean? Perdition, lost, falling down, family, community, alienation. And we can see that during this time in this country. This country, what has killed this country? Idolatry. What has killed other countries? Idolatry. And that's the problem. The reason for the fall is lost in the physical and in the material or the moral. The physical and the moral. That is the fall to ruin. That's what causes fall to ruin. Ruin disappears when we invest and we take from the best that we have and use it to prosper and to restore. Abandonment. That's the other point. References to the lack of attention, lack of hygiene daily, and regard to oneself. Abandonment is the lack of attention and discouragement and lack of hygiene daily and forgetting to do that. Deuteronomy 2. Solution. For ruin and abandonment, we find it in Psalms 113:12. What is the solution? To remember the mercies of God. Do not forget any of His benefits. And that's when we begin to be restored in our temple, in the altar of God. Do not forget what God has done with your family, what God has done for you and your family, household. And when we begin to remember what God has done in our lives, when you reconstruct the altar of worship, then worship is going to build you up. And that's what I want. Hear this. If you want God to repair you, repair today the altar of His worship. You want healing? You want to be delivered? You want this? You want that? Start now. So you get rid of the old ashes and put some new wood at your altar. Begin to worship God. You're going to see what God is going to do. Look, I want to provide you a very important example. In the book of Matthew, chapter 9, verse 2. And it happened that those brought a paralyzed person, tended over a bed, laying on a bed. And Jesus saw the faith they had. Be encouraged. Your sins are healed. In Matthew 8:2. And the leper came, and he knelt. A man with leprosy came and knelt before him and said, Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man, and he was healed. And then the Jairus' daughter was raised from the centurion when the Gentile woman came and worshipped, and her daughter, who was possessed by a demon, she was healed. Canaanite youth was running to Jesus, and he was freed from the demons. In the book of John 9:28, A blind man worshiped Jesus, and then he was healed. After he was healed, he began to worship him. You want healing? You want healing? Restore your altar. You want deliverance? Restore your altar. The question is, how do we know that we have worshiped God? When we have a heart filled with so much pain and agony, it is time for you to get up and go further away from that pain. That misery is going to slowly kill you and tear you down. Ask God to take away all the resentment. Ask God to remove from your life all misery. Everything that is there that is not only contaminating your heart, but is robbing you of the desire and the future that God has for you. Ask God this moment. God is inviting you these moments, and you want to receive Him in your presence. This moment, God is reaching out to you, and God wants you to respond to Him. How am I going to respond to God? Just like healing is waiting for you, a new life can begin here in this moment for your life. And God is waiting for us to invite us to restore. El Salvador, God bless you. Asking for prayer for Raquel Mendoza. Prayer for Rosa Martinez for healing. Connie, God bless you. We're praying for you. That God will continue to heal your body. And Christian Suarez, healing for your mother's knees as she's feeling pain. Let us pray to God so that God can continue to restore these lives, this moment. There's nothing impossible for God. God, the desire is for God to do a healing in your life. Remember the message, the counsel of the message. Look at your altar. How is your altar of worship? Are you upright to worship God? Are you giving worship to God? And you're going to receive Christ as your Savior. And you're there saying, God, forgive me. I guarantee you that there is healing for your life. I guarantee you that God is going to free that body that is hurting in that illness. Rafael Mendoza, that God's got to take control. You hear me, Rafael Mendoza? There cannot be conviction. We keep ourselves in addiction or any type of things in your life. When you give your life to God, there's nothing that God can do for you. I'm telling you because of experience. God does miracles in your life. It doesn't matter anything that you're going through in your life, any struggle you're going through, open your heart to God. Let the Holy Spirit take control of your life. Anything that has in your life that is dragging you down, that is keeping you at alcohol, whatever it may be, in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, we free you in the name of Jesus Christ. God bless you. Be courageous and say, Lord, I am healed spiritually and physically. In order to be healed physically and spiritually, we need to stop for a moment. We need to examine ourselves, evaluate ourselves. What is happening in my life? What am I doing that is displeasing to God? What am I doing that God is in disagreement with? Come into the sovereignty of God. Enter into the sovereignty of God, and God is going to do an amazing miracle in your life. I believe it. God bless you. That God may place His hand upon you. That God may place His beautiful hand upon your mother. That God may bless her and heal her knees, and she may feel that warmth, spiritual warmth, embrace upon her life. Praise God. We're here located at 711 East 4th Street, West Liberty, Iowa. You can send us a message us and let us know that you are hearing us, that you are hearing the message of God through this medium. The Lord bless you. The Lord guard you and keep you. The Lord lets His face shine upon you, have mercy upon you. The Lord show His face before you and place peace in you. And in the same way, you're going to invoke the name of your God upon your children. I bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I want to tell you, you're hearing the congregation. I know that many people have have lost their jobs, and always remember that it is for those who are able, because they have that resource economically to do so. Do not forget about giving your donations, to church, and you can see that the information has been provided of where to donate. But don't forget, to donate, to give. I know it's hard during these times and to do that, but please don't forget, your donations, are a blessing to us and able to continue to support our ministry here in the name of Jesus. God bless you, and I know that God is going to do something amazing in your life, and God is going to bless you. Amen.
Renuévame, Señor Jesús. Ya no quiero ser igual. Renuévame, Señor Jesús. Pon en mí tu corazón, porque todo lo que hay dentro de mí necesita ser cambiado, Señor, porque todo lo que hay dentro de mi corazón, Señor, necesita más de ti. Porque todo lo que hay dentro de mí necesita ser cambiado, Señor, porque todo lo que hay dentro de mi corazón, Señor, necesita más de ti. Necesita más de ti. Necesita más de ti.
God bless you once again this beautiful morning to every single one of you. We're very glad and so grateful unto God, because we know that God has spoken to us. We know that God has helped us, and pray and hope that God has spoken to your heart today, and how God has spoken to us to restore that altar of our lives. God calls us to do, and to all the people who are hearing us this moment, we want to greet all the people who are just connecting and those that will connect later on. Uh, Blessings to all of you, my family in Texas, my mom in Texas who are listening. Blessings to everyone in Mexico and all around who are listening. El Salvador, anybody who connected from El Salvador, from Nicaragua, Honduras, many different places that have connected. The message of God is reaching the nations. The glory be to God. And who's going to do it? You and I. Through these ways of technology, that we're able to reach out to more hearts and more lives. So blessings once again on this moment. And we want to do something very special. I know that you are at home. Please do not disconnect. You know that on Wednesday it's our pastor's birthday. Uh, we're never gonna forget that. That's pastor's birthday. That's a very important day, right? We want pastor to please come up here. Brother Sammy, we have our pastor here. We have a piece of cake. We always done that, not because this is happening right now. We do this a little bit different. We always done this year by year. giving Pastor a
Happy
cake. Let us all at
birthday
home,
to
let us sing to
you.
Pastor.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Pastor. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Pastor. Happy birthday to you.
Hallelujah. Awesome. Thank you, Jesus. Pastor says, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Pastor wasn't expecting that. Thank you, Sister Nelsa. Thank you. Well, we always do that every single year. We gotta get Pastor his slice of cake, right? And we've been doing this for 29 years, church. Glory to God. God is so good. And I know that you want to send Pastor a text, a message. Man, just do it. Pastor's going to be so delighted in hearing from you. And thank you for being part of our congregation. Church, we miss you so, 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 so much. And very soon we'll be reopening the doors back up so that we can come and congregate. And the plan is for June 14th for us to reopen the church. Let us keep praying for that day so that we can get that done. That's the plan. The 14th of June for reopening. So blessings. Let us pray right now to be blessed this moment. This moment, everyone together in unity, asking God for the blessing. So please accompany us to pray this moment. That God be blessed. And someone told me, hey, thank you so much for not forgetting about the final blessing, about blessing. And I know that God is going to bless every single one of our households and their lives. Let us pray. Father God, we give thanks to you this moment, Jesus. Father God, thank you for this opportunity that you give to us to be here, gathered together in your house of worship, that we can continue to glorify your name and exalt your name that is above all name. Father God, we're going to be dismissed from the service today. Our brothers and sisters that are our friends and family that are in their homes right now, bless every single one of them, the oldest to the youngest. Their homes, that they are protected and they are blessed, Father God. Free us from all evil, from any plan of attack or the enemy that may come to our lives, our families, Heavenly Father, our loved ones. Free us in any moment. Deliver us, Father God. Care for us, God, in your holy name. We ask you, those who are gathered, this group of a personnel who's here this Sunday, supply to them all the need, given the strength, Father God, to continue doing the ministry work that you want us to do, that you have commanded us to do. Heavenly Father, we ask you in your holy and blessed name, in the name of Christ Jesus our Lord, his name that is above all name, we give once again thanks to you. Church, God bless you. We will see you on Friday. 8 p.m. is when we start. Please and share share this message, share this stream, so other lives will be blessed as well. God bless you. A big embrace.